You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. And if, like us, you have just sat through 210 minutes of the two most boring football games ever to have been played in the history of the game, then I feel for you. But rest assured that us here on the We Are West Ham podcast will try and ensure that the next 90 minutes are far more entertaining. The wheels, it seems, are falling off at West Ham. We've plummeted to 6th in the league. We couldn't beat relegation fodder Fulham away, and then we absolutely whimpered at Old Trafford, particularly in extra time, as frustrating mistakes cost us once again as we crashed out to the FA Cup to Manchester United, as we seem to do every single year. We're recording this podcast, me and the lads, straight after the Manchester United game, so the reaction from all three of us is particularly raw. I've already written off my friendship with James Jones, which is a shame, as I was growing really attached to him because he's defended Benrahma and said, and I quote, "I thought he was pretty good after he came on." James Jones, you are a shambles. Benrahma is a shambles. As you can tell, I'm in an extremely bad and irrational mood already, so I'm sure there'll be some good sound bites from me tonight. How are you? What are your thoughts?
I'm absolutely fine, mate. I'm just a little bit worried about you. I mean, yeah, okay. It's gutted to be going out the FA Cup. I thought it was a good opportunity this season, but I thought Benrahma was pretty good when he come on. I know we'll go into a little bit more, but he was one of the very few players. One of the very few players. Was it the 10
times you gave the ball away? Sorry to keep talking over you, but was it the 10 times you gave it away, or the repeated occasions you slowed the play down?
At least he was trying to make something happen. There were very few players on the pitch that had the ability to make something happen. It was a very, and this isn't Moyes' fault, it was a very negative approach to the game, negative lineup, because we just didn't have the personnel there. He's come on, probably should have come on earlier and done all right. So, yeah. I think you're being very, very harsh on a man, to be honest.
Well,
other than that, I'm all right.
Well, you're far too upbeat for my liking, James. He was just going out the FA Cup frustratingly. Tom, how are you? You're Benrahma's biggest fanboy, so we won't start the podcast by picking just on him, but what's your thoughts straight off of the back of the game? It's literally 10:15 on the Tuesday night that we're having this chat at the moment. For anyone who's at home listening, feels pretty raw at the moment. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it was today. I found today a bit gutting, really. I think what is it in the league? It's 2 points from a possible 21 against top 6 teams, and we've gone with the same attitude against all the teams who are supposedly the big hitters, and it hasn't worked. And we've done it again in a cup game, and ultimately it's gone tonight as bad as it could have ever gone for us. Fine, we stayed in the game for 120 minutes. But our starting 11's played 120 minutes. Bonner's gone off injured. Soufal's limped off at the end. We've subbed our best young player on then to hook him again to defeat his confidence. He was meant to be the next guy to sort of stand up there and maybe take the reins when Antonio can't do the job or Yarmolenko's not working and his confidence is crushed. We won't see him again for a while. So I think it's tonight's gone terribly and we didn't show much ambition. On the Benrahma thing, he gave it away a bit, the one at the end when he could have given it in the box, fine. But he does have that personality to get on the ball. I thought he did make things happen. I'd like to see the passing stats when he was actually on the pitch. I reckon we had more of the ball in better areas and he actually made things happen, fine his decision-making at times, but he had personality, he was willing to get in the ball and he had that bollocks to try and make something happen. So I think he should have been used earlier on, as should have Lanzini. But shame of a night, but we are sick and we still got a sniff in the league. It's just gutting because you see that and you worry if Antonio does get a knock.
No, mate, this is the thing, and James was speaking, and I know why, because when I'm in a mood like this, the very worst parts of my personality come out. There is no doubt about that at all. But I just thought this is the sort of thing tonight, right? With that striker situation, and when at the time, you almost feel for some reason, because of the nature of the club and the the feeling or the messaging and the communications put out by the club about fan expectations and what was and wasn't promised when you move from Upton Park, blah blah blah. And when it all come to the end, of the transfer window and we hadn't signed anyone, there's something in you that stops you from going proper two-footed. Although we did say it was annoying, I felt personally like there was something, you're holding it back. Do you think, it is good at the moment? You don't want to be that one, the negative voice going, being the one moaning at times when times are good. But that tonight is that's exactly what is the point? You play in the FA Cup once a year.
What is the point?
You go to Old Trafford with a substitute right winger playing up front. That's not what West Ham United is supposed to be doing, is it? That's not, and I totally agree about Odubeko, Tom, coming on and hooking him. I thought that was an awful decision. He wasn't. I know he didn't do loads, but he was feeding off absolute scraps.
Yeah.
But the whole reason is we're playing with a right winger who can't even get on to the pitch at right wing, playing up front, and this is exactly what it is. And it's nights like that the chickens come home to roost, or whatever that stupid saying is that I've probably got wrong. It's just so annoying, isn't it? It's give ourselves a chance. Man United were there to be beaten tonight, weren't they?
It's all born out of the fact that they didn't go out and get who they needed to get in January.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
If there was a reason to criticise that decision, or a right time to criticise the decision, it's tonight. I completely agree with everything you said, apart from what you said about Benrahma. It's criminal. It's absolutely criminal what's happened over the last 10 days. Failed to get a striker in, and then gone to Man United in the FA Cup without a striker, and then, as Tom said, crush the confidence of an 18-year-old lad. It's criminal. But are we even surprised? This is
No, but it's not, James. That's what I mean. Gone are the days where you just shrug it off and go, "These are West Ham," because we're not at Upton Park anymore. That's the difference these days, isn't it? I was part of it, just like everyone else before, where you'd shrug it off and go, "Yeah, that's what it's West Ham, whatever." That's sort of what we do. But we're not supposed to be about that anymore. And it's
been like this for the 5 years since we moved to the stadiums. Yeah. That's my point. That's my point. It's like it's still same old West Ham. It's Upton Park, London Stadium, whatever.
It shouldn't be.
The same. It shouldn't be. And I think that's the reality of it at the moment.
The subs that we made at half time said it all for me. I think we were so poor going forward, and we had no outlet. Yarmolenko doesn't run in behind. He doesn't have pace and power, so the game becomes so small for us. And no one's good enough on the ball to play those intricate passes. And yet, what do? We make the game smaller for us by putting an extra defender in there, going 5 at the back, putting 2 fullbacks on, one who isn't even left-footed. And it just seemed all negative all game. It was just a bit mental.
I tell you what, though, Ben Johnson was probably the best player on the pitch for us.
What a stormer!
Superb. And he wanted to get forward. He tried to get forward. He was taking players on. So he was one positive from tonight. I thought, I think it's a very, very good performance from him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, massive respect for Ben Johnson. Well, look, let's have a bit of housekeeping. We'll tell everyone what's coming up on the show. We've started it with an absolute bang. Understandably, still fresh off of the back of that game. Frustration still very raw, especially for me. And I'm sorry to both of you for the upsetting words I'll inevitably say to one or both of you when you disagree with me on one or two minor level quibbles later on this evening. But look, we'll do a little bit of housekeeping first. Do follow us on Twitter at @WeAre_West Ham. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can watch this whole show in full, or some cut up exclusive videos, just individual segments if you prefer some to others, the exclusive guests that we have on the Betway charity bets, the opposition view and the women's section. Jonesy is doing a fine job of slicing all those up, so you can just have little bits and pieces, pick and choose what you watch if you want to. So scroll down to the description of this podcast and the link to our YouTube channel is there. We're on Instagram as well if you want to get us on there. And coming up on the show tonight in part 2, we'll go into the Man United game and react to that in full and in more detail than we have already. We'll have a brief look back at the Fulham game, 0-0 dross. We all know what we're going to be talking about. Mike Dean and Tomas Soucek. Betway charity bets. Jonesy had a win against Aston Villa, so some positive among all the gloom there. 400 quid for the DT38 Foundation. Part 4, we'll have the opposition view. The travelling Blade will join us to talk ahead of the Blades' visit to London Stadium on Monday night, the 15th of February. James Jones leads the way and is in the hot seat, the Quizmaster's chair for Name That Game, as me and Tom try to extend our lead and leave him even more stranded at the bottom. We'll wrap up with Sandra Brobby from The Sun newspaper, WSL expert and sports journalist, to have a look at a pretty grim week for the West Ham women. And then we'll have some final thoughts from the lads, see if I've calmed down, see if all our friendships are still intact, and we will say goodbye for another week. So you've got all of that coming up, and we'll go into the Man United game, like I said, in a bit more detail next. So you are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. James, let's have it straight away. No frilly introduction. You seem pretty chipper about this Manchester United game. You've just reminded me as well, after my grim and dour introduction, that we've actually had 3 West Ham games since the last podcast we did. That superb victory at Aston Villa last Wednesday evening. That seems like a lifetime ago now. I must admit, we spoke to Tim Wildwood, didn't we, just 7 days ago? Yeah, and you know what? We will reflect on that a little bit. It does seem a little bit old news, of course, now, but there is some positive to take from all this. And I'm already feel myself simmering down, which is a good news for the listeners and for my own general levels of sanity and anger. But Man United first, that's the freshest in everyone's mind. That's what everyone's going to be talking about when this podcast goes live in the early hours of Wednesday morning UK time. So hit me, Manchester United. What's your, I've just literally just flicked onto Twitter as we had the break there, and I've seen a tweet saying, oh, we lose by the odd goal at Man United and suddenly the whole world's falling to bits. Get a grip. And I that sort of thing, and that's already annoyed me, so I'm triggered again. What's how do you come at it? Because we were talking, weren't we, in the first section about the lack of striker and all that sort of thing, and I think that the anger, that frustration I'm feeling now is because when there's anyone arguing against that, right? Whenever anyone in that end of January goes, oh, we're sick, what are you moaning about? Whenever anyone says that, you think, right, well, you're moaning just because you're moaning at a time when it's good. It doesn't mean the thing you're moaning about is any less bad, if that makes sense. And
yeah.
And the thing is, when we were moaning about that, you were moaning about it. You wrote that really good piece in The Sun, articulating it really well, exactly why West Ham fans were annoyed despite being 5th in the league at the time. We spoke about it on this podcast. And the reason is that there's an inevitability to things like tonight. And if we have a bad run the next few games, I'm still not convinced that Antonio is actually just tired, by the way. He was definitely clutching his hamstring in that Fulham game. There was clear TV pictures showing him clutching his hamstring, and then he comes off after 70 minutes. If he was just tired, you'd have him in the squad tonight, wouldn't you? You'd have him on the bench. So I'm still very, very dubious about whether or not he's got another hamstring injury again. And the reason we were moaning and getting irate about that was because there's an inevitability. And tonight, everyone could see it coming, couldn't they, without a striker in the squad? And if we end up, it's not that I do think it's bad that they hooked Odubeko after bringing him on. I don't think that's done him any favours at all. And I don't know, if the next 4 or 5 games end up being poo and disappointing, it's one of those things you want to go, on one hand, you're going, see, I told you so. But at the same time, taking no joy out of saying, I told you so, or gloating about it. Not that, I'm the sort of bloke who normally would take pleasure out of gloating when I'm right about things, but you don't enjoy, you're not going, yes, see, I was right, everyone. You're going, oh, for God's sake, I knew this was going to happen. I'm just rambling now.
Yeah.
Interject.
No,
Interject quick.
I think that this result at United, was born out of the fact that we've just got a severe lack of squad depth, and obviously that goes back to the transfer window. We've already mentioned it in the intro, but you know, David Moyes and the rest of the management at the football club, and that goes all the way up to the board level, should have seen this coming a mile off. If the fans can see it, then why can't they see it? I think David Moyes has done a great job this year, and I find it very hard to criticise him. But for him to allegedly make the decision that he's all right to coast the rest of the season with Antonio and Yarmolenko is incredibly naive. And what, two games down the line, we've already blown it. Yarmolenko, Tom, you just it sounds like he's done his knee ligaments. So he's going to be out for a while. Odubeko, I mean, hopefully his confidence isn't too affected by what happened at Old Trafford. It was a bit harsh on the lad, but he let the game pass him by. He didn't really grab his moment, to be fair, but to pull him off could really affect him. So we're stuck with Antonio and his hamstrings. And it's just ridiculous. Like we shouldn't be in this situation. And the same goes for midfield. I mean, the fact that we've had to, Declan Rice and Tomas Soucek have had to play 120 minutes tonight, and they will be expected to play 90 minutes on Monday night. They both of them have been in the midfield all season. Mark Noble's had to go in and do 120 minutes, and he's the backup at 33. It's like, why have we, in a season like we've got at the moment, where it's a massive opportunity. We've spoken about it for weeks now. It's a huge opportunity for a club like West Ham this season. They don't come around very often. And we've allowed ourselves to go into the second half of the season. Forget about going out of the FA Cup. Like that is frustrating. But there's more to it than just losing at Man United and going out of the FA Cup in the fifth round, because this now essentially could affect where we end up in the Premier League. I still think a top 10 finish would be a success, even if we don't qualify for Europe. It'll still be classed as a successful season. But we've got a battle on our hands now between the end of the season to even finish in the top 10, because if we ain't got a striker who can play every week, if we ain't got backup in midfield, we are well and truly screwed. And on top of that, Bonner? I mean, is he going to be out for a while or not? No one knows.
That could easily be an ankle ligaments, couldn't it?
Yeah,
exactly. So like we've lost our best defender this season. Oh, Craig Dawson's still brick walls, so that's all right. But I mean, he's another one who had a great game at Old Trafford. To be fair, what a player. But yeah, it's just they're all those little mistakes and issues are now beginning to sort of pile up a little bit, slowly but surely, coming back to bite us a little bit. And I just hope that it doesn't end up putting or being the reason why we don't achieve what we have been capable of achieving this season. Because, I mean, I said it last week, there'll be a lot of questions to answer, particularly at board level, or if it all goes wrong between now and May.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is, and I just want to clarify this, the reason that I'm frustrated by tonight's showing is because, or the reason tonight's showing is frustrating, is because we haven't given it our best go. And by that, I don't mean on the night. I mean, as a football club, we haven't given the season our best go by leaving ourselves short in January. That if we'd have bought a striker, I'm not saying that if we'd have bought a striker in January, they'd definitely won tonight. That's not what I'm saying for anyone listening or on Twitter, whatever tries to oversimplify it. What the reason and the frustration comes from is if we'd have gone up there and we'd bought someone in January and we had a backup midfielder, like you say, I've got no qualms about playing backup players, whatever. But if you'd have gone up there with those backups and given it your best go, and then the backup striker that we bought in wasn't good enough, and neither was the midfielder we bought in, then you don't mind, do you? And you lose by the odd goal to at Old Trafford, and you lose 1-0 in extra time. You go, oh, fair enough, we've given it our best go, but we haven't. We've gone, you know what? Rather than give this our best go, we'll just try and stumble through with what we've got. It's not going to be that impressive. But like I said, there's an inevitability that we'll fall like down the league a bit and crash out the cup. It's just like, well, what's the point of us getting excited for stuff then? What's the point of us giving our all and getting up for it every week and paying our money at the club and the store and all that sort of stuff if whoever's fault it was, not buying a striker, Moyes or the club, it's a lack of ambition by someone.
Yeah.
Whoever, the semantics.
I think it's worth saying and making it clear that I think the performance against United, it wasn't 100% terrible. I thought every single player on that pitch gave everything. There are one or two players that were probably a little bit below their best. I think Tomas Soucek had probably one of his worst games for us. But it wasn't a terrible performance. It's just that because he set his standard and his bar so high, he's absolutely knackered. You could tell he was absolutely shattered towards the end. And I'm not surprised. So, he's going to, his passing is going to be a little bit off. He's not going to be as sharp as we used to see him. He's not going to be arriving in the box at time and isn't going to be as impeccable as it used to be, or it has been. So I think it's worth remembering that performance, given the circumstances, could have been a hell of a lot worse. And it could have been a lot more than 1-0. And I think, the players especially deserve a lot of credit for that. It's frustrating. But I'm sure the players are probably questioning it as well, going, hang on, you've got to help us out here. We're absolutely, we're on our knees here.
Declan Rice, show some ambition. If you want me to stay here.
That's the one thing I'd like to say. I think, like Will mentioned, we've got, in my life or whatever, the 24 years, we've had two good teams in 2015, 16, 2005 and 6, and maybe now is the third team. And every year we've made mistakes in the cut. I find the only year we went out trying and we went out giving it everything was 15, 16. That was all the emotion of Upton Park and everything. We went out rightly in the way we should. This year, when we're up there, when we're 5 or what points behind this United side, they've dropped just as many players in their team as us. And we're sitting back and conceding possession and giving it to them and gifting it and willing to take a game into extra time without going for it. Sort of just drilling the players into the ground without ever trying to win a game and just take it to penalties. It just seemed a bit negative and a massive shame, because we literally as a club get this two times a decade, a sniff at having a good team who can go away and actually beat these sides. So to not go there is a disappointment, but like Jonesy said, you can't actually blame the players on the pitch. You can more blame the recruitment and the holes that we have in our squad, because everyone out there did a good job, and I can't say anyone had a bad performance particularly. It's just we didn't have the weapons to hurt them and we didn't go for the game, and that's from Moyes and the management up top.
Yeah, we can't blame anyone on the pitch apart from Benrahma. You're absolutely right, Tom. I couldn't agree with you more.
Here he is.
But Tom, what can you tell us about this Yarmolenko injury then? Because knee ligaments he's suggesting.
Yeah, so apparently the initial reports I've just seen briefly that it was something to do with Ogbonna's ankle, potentially ligaments. Not much said on that, but it was definitely Yarmolenko's knee ligaments. Not saying what it is quite yet, but the fact that he came off as early as he did in the 50-odd minute and was limping about the way he did, and the fact that his ligaments might suggest that that's at least weeks or months, and it's not just he's out for the Sheffield United game, which is another hit. And like you said, Will, which could well be right, Antonio's probably not just a niggle or not just a precaution, is it really? So what do we have to do on Monday? Play Lingard through the middle or who knows what?
Oh, play your man Benrahma, I suppose.
Yeah, go on.
You, but that's exactly what I'm not going to ask you. But look, if we're talking sort of perform, like I said at the beginning of the season, one thing I will say is when we chatted about this, I know James, you absolutely love wheeling out the cliche about this is the season West Ham should win a cup. By the way, I'm fully expecting you to keep wheeling that out, even though we're out both of them for the rest of the season. But at the beginning of the year. Not happy. When we did our pre-season review show, when we said about where we'd like to finish in the league, what would be a good season, etc., etc., I said at the time that I don't buy into that cliche of we should be winning a cup, because ultimately it's almost always one of the big 4 or the big 6 that end up winning them. So I said, just don't go out of either of the cups in disgraceful fashion. We've gone out away to Everton in the League Cup and away to Man United in the FA Cup. Absolutely fine. The fact we get drawn against Man United seemingly every year is not our fault. And like I say, 1-0 in extra time, no shame in it whatsoever. But to switch to some more positive aspects of that game, Ben Johnson has had an absolute stormer when he's come on. I think he's unfortunate this season that Aaron Cresswell and Vladimir Kufal, our current wing backs or full backs, whatever, depending what system we're playing, are having an excellent season. Tom, if I mean, you don't have to take any positives. If you've got none, feel free to come at me with some more negatives from the game if there's anything you want to get off your chest. But if you're looking at the some positive sides, what can you take from them?
Exactly that once again Johnson's being thrown on the left side, which isn't his natural position, and put in a brilliant performance. In 45 minutes he hit the ground running. He looked good going forward. He's big, he's strong, physically he's got all the attributes to make his Premier League player. He's good off both feet, he's technical, and he's got the physicality, so he's a definite plus. When Ogbonna went off, clearly seeing Dawson take the mantle of being that leader of the back four. He's been there matter of months. He's played less than 10 games for the club. He was
unless we forget that James Jones wanted to get rid of him in January.
Do not forget to be fair at the time. But he's just come through everything, and he's just walked it down, and he didn't put a foot wrong. I don't think, sadly, obviously, I don't think any of the back four really put much wrong today. I think Soufal was actually a bit sloppier in the ball. I think he was poor in the ball, but defensively brilliant. All of them were brilliant. The goal was conceded by
Fabianski, by the way.
Yeah.
Fabianski, can we talk about those saves? Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. He was brilliant. The back four were brilliant. I think the goal, and I'm not going to blame Rice. He's done everyone's running for the last 2.5 years. He hasn't missed a minute. But the goal was on him.
So annoying, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The goal's on him, and yeah, that is what it is. But the amount he saved for us, so that's fine. Was on the back four. I think the solidarity we have and the belief they have as a back five unit, including 6 with Soucek and Rice, that's a positive you've got to carry on taking, because we've looked very, very good for this last 2 or 3 months, even if we have conceded goals.
Yeah, Jonesy, come on then. Look, you're sitting there looking very pensive. Rice smiles when I've tried to bait you, and you've been very grown up in not nibbling. Be the voice of reason then for us. But before you do, or you might even be the voice of reason on this, Odubeko, subbing him on, subbing him off. My dad was going absolutely mental during the game. Get him off. And I thought, well, hang on, it's a bit harsh. He's only young anyway, but it seemed to me he was feeding off scraps. All right, he could have imposed himself a bit, but I think he maybe had 6 incidents where the ball was in his zone. So what's your thoughts on Odubeko, and then some general musings on what me and Tom are saying, and the game in general before we move on to the Fulham game?
Well, I don't know a great deal about Odubeko in his style of play. I mean, it was quite obvious straight off the bat that he's not the type of striker that likes to hold the ball up and bring players in. And he struggled playing that role. You know, balls were bouncing off him. He's clearly inexperienced in a position like that, and obviously coming on against your former club. Obviously, he left United 2 years ago to come and sign for us. Like, the pressure on his shoulders must have been huge. He wanted to make a difference, but he ended up letting the game pass him by. I wasn't overly surprised to see David Moyes take him off in the end. But it could go one or two ways. It could go that, confidence is shot and we never see him again. Or he sees that as a learning curve, and he works double hard in training to show David Moyes that he can play in that role, or he can make a difference in the starting 11. There's a reason why he stayed at the club and Afolayan went out on loan in January. Clearly, David Moyes prefers him. There's absolutely no doubt that he's a talent. It's just, we've got to use him the right way, and in chucking him on when he's, I don't think he was expecting to be on so soon in that second half. At Old Trafford in an FA Cup 5th round, going, right, you're the lone striker, go and win us the game. Like, the pressure was already on for him. So I just hope that it doesn't affect him, but I'm not 100% surprised that he was brought off in the end, because the game was just passing by.
You're all right with that? You're all right with Moyes tooling him off like that?
But I think when you're trying to chase the game and you need a little bit of creativity, you need someone up there to be able to make something happen. He spent 50 minutes just not doing a great deal, probably longer than that, best part of an hour. If you include
Benrahma wasn't on that long, was he? Oh, sorry, we're still on Odubeko. Sorry. I thought
Yeah.
I just heard the words ran around and didn't do anything, and I thought you'd moved on side Benrahma already. My bad.
Christ.
Sorry.
I can't wait for our listeners to have a right go at you for this awful attack on one of our best wingers. But anyway, we'll stick on Odubeko. No, I don't think it was that harsh, to be fair. I can see why people do think it's harsh, but you're chasing the game, you need a bit of creativity up front, and Benrahma was doing a great job in trying to create things, and we needed another body in there, someone like Lanzini
to compliment him.
Yeah, who'd you take off in that situation? You take off the one that's not really doing a great deal. Unfortunately, that was Odubeko.
The only thing I think with the Odubeko thing is he's been probably given a minute, given the moment in the 50th minute, his adrenaline, and he did look a bit shy, he did look a bit poor. But what that does long term, probably hauling him off out away at United as a young kid. I don't know. I know he's Irish, but I don't know where his family is from or whatever. But that's it. That in terms of him mentally, for his family, wherever they are, and his friends in Manchester, that's like everything. That's his dream. I just think that what he'll do long term is bad. I know it's about winning a game, but I don't think what we did was more positive taking him off, because he still made the game bigger for us. When Yarmolenko's on the pitch, we had less of the ball in their third. He ran in behind. At least didn't look likely, but at least
he wasn't much worse than Yarmolenko, was he?
But it's not as if he'd been on the pitch for 10 minutes and get hauled straight back off again. He'd had the best part. He'd had over an hour on the pitch when you take into account the extra time.
It seemed worse, didn't it? Yeah.
It did seem a lot worse than what it was.
Because he'd had
over
like,
60 minutes. Exactly, yeah. He'd had over 60 minutes, and he wouldn't have got 60 minutes if he was starting, probably. Yeah. So, it is what it is.
It looked worse than it is. You're right on that.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what happens at the weekend. Obviously, if Antonio's not 100% fit, Yarmolenko's gone. He's going to play a part, I would have thought, at some point. So we'll see what happens then. But I can see why fans are a little bit concerned.
James Jones, the voice of calm and reason now. I don't like it. It just makes me feel on edge when I'm in this angry, unhinged sort of mood. And I'm going to inevitably get a load of abuse about Benrahma as well. And anyone who does tweet me is probably going to be right. Ah, goodness me. But anyway, Fulham, Tom, what a dross game of football that was. I mean, the Soucek thing is what it is. I just the same as everyone else. I don't know if you've got anything else to add on that. The talking point was, of course, the Soucek thing. Ridiculous. Mike Dean, as ever, just everyone said, loads of people. I've never seen football Twitter so united. Not just West Ham fans. You had all the big impartial names. I know Ian Wright played for West Ham, but Ian Wright was tweeting, Gary Lineker. All the journalists, just anyone who's anyone in football was just like, what is the game become?
That's even Tottenham fans, right. Even Tottenham fans were going, that was a little bit harsh.
Yeah. And it's just silly, isn't it? Because we like rivalries and all that, but everyone who watches football likes football because of the game first and foremost, don't they? And watching that 7 or 8 times and deciding to send him off, I mean, what are you doing? He's walking back as if he's got no choice. It's like, yes, you did. Saying this the other day, if you're there, right, watching the screen and you're Mike Dean and you're looking at that thinking, right, if you're really not sure, because you don't watch something 7 times or 8 times or 10 times, whatever, if you're not sure, if you're watching that and you're in two minds, I'd be thinking, right, what's going to cause the most backlash here? Like, what is the most non-football decision I can make here? If I look at that, if I don't send him off, is there going to be mass uproar? No, there is not. You might get a few people going, oh, I thought you should have sent him off. It probably would have been amplified if Soucek nods in the winner from the resulting free kick. It gets a bit more attention. If not, there's no way after on Match of the Day or Sky or wherever that they're in the studio going, how's he only giving him a yellow, or how's he not sent him off? There wouldn't be widespread, unanimous uproar about the fact that Tomas Soucek didn't get sent off for that. But sending him off, like everyone, and afterwards, everyone's almost like just sad and downbeat about what's happened to the game. David Moyes is like, yeah, it's embarrassing. No one you spoke to was like, Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know what everyone's moaning about. Obviously, it was a red card. No one does, and it's like the. I know the referees know the laws better and all that sort of thing, but that was nothing to do with laws. The fact of the matter is, football is a game that we all want to watch. That's why it exists. It exists because so many people like it, and when all of those people who like it, they matter more than the one bloke in the middle, don't they? Or the lawmakers and all that sort of stuff. People going, oh, he had a clenched fist. Behave yourself. He had a clenched fist. It wasn't really that clenched anyway. But what are you talking about? Even if it was, I mean, what is that? That is literally not what football is supposed to be about, is it? And you know what, James? I know a few people tweeted about the death threats and all that sort of stuff, and I don't really want to go into that too much because I think in society these days we spend far too much time reacting to just mindless, brainless scumbag idiots, don't we? And I don't really want to do that on the We Are West Ham podcast. I don't think it needs any of us three to stand here and go, oh, if you're sending Mike Dean death threats, then you're an idiot. I think that certainly goes without saying on the We Are West Ham podcast. I don't want to give that too much oxygen really, because that dominates the narrative and all that sort of thing. Obviously a man should be getting death threats, but look, again, I'm going to be in a very rambly mood tonight, aren't I, James? You're gonna have to start getting better at interrupting me. So give me some thoughts one way or the other.
No, I think just on that, I think the death threats are even more embarrassing than the actual decision. Like what you've already said, it's just what you're doing, sending the referee death threats.
99.8% of people haven't done that.
Yeah, haven't done that exactly.
Anyone listening to the We Are West Ham podcast who's done that, I don't feel like there would be anyone among our listeners because they're not sort of real normal football fans, are they? So for the 99.99% of you listening who obviously weren't one of the ones who sent a referee death threats because of one of the worst decisions of the season, talk to me about the decision, the game, and just anything around all that, so we don't give any of these idiots too much more oxygen.
You've said all pretty much everything that I probably would have said. I mean, the one qualm I had with it was Mitrovic. He said to Mike Dean, like, "Oh no, it was an accident. No, he didn't mean it." But he went down like a right, holding his face like it was like he'd just been shot in the face, and it was like, hang on, wait. Like, you've gone down the way you've gone down, which makes it a lot worse than what it actually was. The moment Mike Dean's gone for the red card, you've gone, oh no, he didn't mean it. Don't send him off. What was he trying to do? What was his game plan there? Because 1 minute he's trying to get him sent off. The
Maybe
next
it
minute,
just really hurt.
I very much doubt it. I mean, have you seen the size of Mitrovic? Like, I'm pretty sure he didn't get butted by Bonner in the other one. He stood there and took it
through it.
So exactly. So like
Soucek's elbows look well pointy though.
It's true, but the whole thing frustrated me. It was about, hang on, what were you trying to do there? Are you trying to get him sent off, or did you try and get him sent off and then feel guilty afterwards after you'd realised that actually I've done a really bad thing here. I've been a little bit of a naughty boy. Like, it's a bit silly. But thankfully, justice was done. I think we all knew it would get overturned, and the decision would be overturned.
Despite the clenched fist.
But that was the funny thing about it. It came out and said, "Oh, they were checking for a clenched fist." That was why Lee Mason had asked Mike Dean to go and check it on the pitch side monitor. So Mike Dean's watched it 8 or 9 times and seen that there isn't a clenched fist. There isn't a clenched fist there, and he's still sent him off.
Yes.
I mean, the whole thing's baffling. There's only one person in the world that knows why he came to that decision, and that's Mike Dean himself. Yeah. No one can, like, as you said, every single person went, why has he sent him off? There wasn't really another side to it. So, yeah, thankfully it was rescinded, overturned. But to be fair, he could have done with a 1 game ban just so he didn't do 120 minutes tonight. At least one game off.
Absolutely. Tom, what did you, again, not a lot happened in that Fulham game. I do think that Mike Dean decision, as much as the decision was annoying, it dominated headlines and the Twitter sphere and chats among fans everywhere. But I think if you're West Ham, you're probably thinking few, because the talk would almost certainly after the game have been about Michail Antonio and the strikers thing, which is obviously going to haunt the club for every single game that Michail Antonio either isn't playing this season or isn't playing well, isn't it?
100%. That's what I was about to say when you guys that it marred the fact that we looked tired, we looked knackered in not just the striker department. Soucek looked tired, Rice looked tired. Whole midfield, we didn't look like we have that buzz that we had away at Villa and that buzz that we've had for 95% of the season, to be fair to the club. But we just looked like we lacked that cutting edge, and we were just off the back of one of our best results all season and probably our best performance from start to finish. And I felt they just looked a bit flat off the back of that. But like we said between ourselves on a group chat, they're not a bad side. And that point's nothing to be scoffed at, because they probably could have nicked points this season that they haven't got. They're a very decent, so like they play decent football. They've got bravery on the ball, and they will outpass teams and get in. It's just they're finishing in their final third, which lets them down from being better than the Burnleys and Brightons of this world. So not the worst point in the world, but disappointing. The one thing I'll say on the referees thing is that what's the biggest worry for me is that Lee Mason and Mike Dean have been, a couple decades together worth of experience, and they've grown with the game, and they were there before VAR, and they were there when the game was supposedly a little bit harder, a man's game. And they've seen those things, and they should surely view that incident and understand that that is a 6'4" guy trying to get his arm over a slightly smaller guy. And that is literally what happens at every set piece. It's just come off wrong because just the way they've interpreted that is seriously worrying going forward for the English game, because they are supposedly the two most experienced, two of the best, and they've watched that slowed down 10, 15 times, however many times, and they've come to the conclusion that a legitimate movement going after the ball with a guy with a track record of over 200 games, 0 red cards, in the slow-mo, same slow-mo they're trying to look at VAR, he's already got his hands up going, sorry. Like it just, if that's how they're interpreting the game, then it's in a bad place. So we just got to, like we all said, death threats and getting on his back is unacceptable, totally unacceptable. But there needs to be reprimand. Like FA needs to look into it, because that's 2 mistakes in a row from Lee Mason and him, which have been very high profile and unprofessional. So something needs to be done about the standard of refereeing.
Yeah, I think that's it's the general game enjoyment that seems to have flittered away this season. And I was massively pro VAR beforehand, but I think the way it's been implemented is a bit of a joke. But again, that is a conversation that's been had 1,000 times. Look, lads, just quickly, very briefly, before we wrap up part 2, Aston Villa. What a game that was! What a team! I'm going to wait and let you two say some positive things before I say it's not even a narky comment, it's just a thing I've noticed. Everyone was absolutely up in arms. All right, I'll start with it. Josie, you're shaking your head already. Right, Jesse Lingard, everyone's absolutely delighted. I did think he played really, 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 really well, but if Emi Martinez hadn't dipped, there is a but, of course.
Knew it.
If Emi Martinez hadn't dipped each of his gloves in full vats of Lurpak before the game, it would have been 1-1, and it wouldn't quite have been quite as whoopee. But it was fantastic and a brilliant result. But that bit did make me laugh, and I think I'm more annoyed because I bought Lingard into my team off the back of it. And but hey,
you create your own luck. I think we had like 30 attempts on goal in that game. So
I'm just in a bad mood, James. All right.
So like, if you know, he's had, I think the stats come up at the end of the game. He had 6 shots on goal and 3 on target. So his performance alone, and even without those 6 shots, he was such an influence for us going forward. Him, Antonio, Benrahma, linking up lovely. So yeah. Martinez is a much better goalkeeper than he was that night. I think we got him luckily on a bad night because he's a top class keeper. But yeah, one of the best debuts I've seen from a West Ham player in a long time, probably since Payet, I would have thought. Whether he'll have the same impact, I don't know, but fully deserving of a brace, fully deserving, regardless of the keeping, fully deserving. And I would say our best performance of the season away at Villa.
Yep.
Tough place to go. Went there and completely outplayed them. Still can't quite work out what John McGinn was saying about how we went there and played for the point. But he actually said we turned up and played for the point. It's like, mate, It doubled the amount of chances that you had.
We just stopped their best player from playing. Yeah.
We scored 3 goals. Like, what are you talking about, mate? But yeah, no, good result. Good performance. Jesse Lingard, best player that's ever played for West Ham. apart from Craig Dawson, I'll add.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, we've finally got you to pin your flag to the mast on something this evening. Yeah, I know. I was being facetious about Lingard. Of course, it was absolutely phenomenal. The way that Musgrove Moyes got it tactically spot on, in Fredericks and Kufal, who had Grealish just in their pockets all game, and brilliant idea. Nothing wrong with freezing their most attacking, threatening player out the game whatsoever at all. Tom, I'd love to get your thoughts on Villa. Have you got anything really brief to add on that, to what me and Jonesy was saying? But Jonesy said it's the best performance of the season. Are you having that?
Yeah, I think that and Leeds, for me, just 2 solid away performances against 2 very good sides who are willing to play good football. Yep. And you can see the extent to which we have the ability and the bollocks to get personality and play our own football. And I think what Lingard does is he allows Benrahma to play on the left in his best position. Then you've got Rice and Soucek with more balance. There's less responsibility on Soucek getting forward early in attacks, and he can actually stay there with Rice and win the ball higher up. So Lingard's the one playing off the striker. I think it just gives us way more versatility. He's obviously, like I thought coming in, he's a really technically good footballer. He will link the play. It was probably better than anyone could imagine his debut, but he looked the real deal. And we've just got to really hope that this little blip, I know it's 2 games and it's a United and Fulham, but that these don't really harm us and we get back on the pedestal, because we have looked brilliant. That game was the best we've played. So fingers crossed they get back to that.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Well, look, comprehensive, detailed reaction there to those 3 games West Ham have had since our last podcast. Only one in the upcoming week. And we'll talk about that and more in the Betway charity bet section next. So you are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. Electric start to the show from the lads there. And without further ado, we've got something to celebrate here on the We Are West Ham podcast, right in the middle, part 3, just as we like it. We've won a Betway charity bet. Woo! James Jones takes the award. The Aston Villa game, I was very close. Tom wasn't a million miles away either. He was the furthest away because he keeps backing Jared Bowen to score. And
last time,
I don't think he's going to for the rest of the season. But Jonesy, well played. You have pulled in some cash money for the DT38 Dylan Tombides Foundation. In case anyone doesn't know at home, me and the lads are playing for 3 West Ham based charities, thanks to a charity stake of £50 each per week that we get to put on the West Ham game. I'm playing for the Bobby Moore Fund, Tom for Isla's Fight, and James, as I mentioned, for the DT38 Dylan Tombides Foundation. We've raised a few £1,000 already, which is great. And Jonesy, you added how much to the pot for DT38 last week against Villa?
It was a long time coming, chaps, but I've added £400 to the pot for DT38 with my selection against Villa. West Ham to win. I had both teams to score, and I had big Tommy Soucek to score any time. So that came in nicely, £400. It takes our overall total to £3,217.50, and that's before Betway match it at the end of the season. So that's just under £6,500 for charity so far this season, boys.
I'm not being funny, James. I just think take a minute there, because as you said that figure, we started this obviously just as 3 or 2 idiots at first, now 3 idiots just chatting about West Ham in a radio studio in Southwark. We decided to carry it on as a Zoom call or as a Zoom based podcast or whatever when lockdown hit in March, and to be now February 2021 and we've raised £6,500 for charity. I've done a few bits before, but that is fantastic, and I'm really pleased and proud of all 3 of us there. And thanks so much again, obviously, to Chad and Betway in particular, who that ultimately they're putting the money up for this. But yeah, that is wonderful. £6,500. I mean, you'd have to do a lot of, you know, run-ins and or running or bike rides or whatever lots of people do for charity, lots of raffles to raise £6,500, wouldn't you? So I think fair play to you, James, this week, and fair play to all of us for that. And like you said, Betway doubling it at the end of the season, so that 400 was actually 800 for the charity. And I must mention, lads, as well, although this podcast will go out after the Manchester United game, I don't want to lift the lid off of the podcast recording secret, but we're recording this segment just before kickoff at Old Trafford. Therefore, we don't know the result yet, but Chad has given us a £50, an extra £50 bet on West Ham to win the FA Cup at 16-1. So yeah, think if we already obviously desperate for the Hammers to come through it tonight. By the time you're listening to this, every one of us will know, of course. But yeah, if they've got through, there's that little added bonus if we manage to win the cup as well. But Tom, you were quite far away against Villa. Both teams to score penalty to be awarded and Bowen any time. I went West Ham to score a header. Which again was West Ham to score a header, both teams to score on more than 5.5 corners. It was just the header that I was missing. Tomas Soucek scoring with his feet for once. None of us got anywhere near in the Fulham game because it was an absolutely dead game of football. None of us had 0-0 ball draw, Tomas Soucek to get unreasonably sent off at the end, and absolutely nothing else to happen. None of us actually had that bet. So I did promise last week that we would have the commentator on from West Ham Clips, the alternative commentary, as loads of you will have heard on Twitter and Instagram, the best piece of West Ham content that comes out every week. And I don't mind saying that. I think our podcast is good, but everyone absolutely loves those alternative commentaries. The Czech Patrick Vieira, Le Tiblé, which is the new character, Blue Passport Beckenbauer for Craig Dawson. And unfortunately, we couldn't get it done for this week. The schedules, ours and his, didn't quite line up. So next week, I guarantee you he's going to be on. He'll be making a 3-bet selection for the Tottenham game. So do tune in for that. I promise. He'll be on next week. So that's something to look forward to. Lads, the Sheffield United game is West Ham's next game. Sheffield United at home on Monday, the 15th of February. Tom, we'll go to you first. What have you gone for?
I've gone with West Ham to win by more than 1.5 goals. Benrahma to eventually score anytime in over 5.5 corners. Yeah, like you said, it's great to be part of raising some money for charity, but ideally I need another over the line to get the confidence going and to raise a little bit more for Isla.
Well, maybe if you stop betting on your fanboy Benrahma and Bowen to score all the time, you'd actually win some cash. Did you say over 5.5 or 8.5 corners?
I said 5.5. I want to get sort of, if one of them comes off, I don't want to lose it by the corners, basically.
Yeah, of course, which I had done a couple of weeks ago. Very frustrating indeed. Jonesy, what have you gone with?
I've gone West Ham to win, naturally, over 2.5 goals, and our boy Jesse Lingard to get on the score sheet again, inspired by that incredible debut against Villa. Quite against Fulham, but his first game at London Stadium in claret and blue, and I fancy him to get back on the score sheet.
Like it. Yeah, I got well and truly caught up with the hype after the Aston Villa game. Pulled him into both of my main fantasy team and my draft fantasy team that I do as well, and thought, yeah, definitely. I've uncovered a gem here. Got in there before everyone else. Absolutely rubbish against Fulham. Very disappointing indeed. But yeah, so my bet for the Sheffield United game, I tried to go a little bit different this week. West Ham to win and West Ham to keep a clean sheet, and Tomas Soucek to score anytime. A little bit nervous about that clean sheet part, but we've looked solid at the back this season. Sheffield United, up until recently, had looked blunt in front of goal, so I'm hoping we can at least keep a shutout and super Tomas Soucek to carry on his rampant goal scoring form. So as always, if you want to back those bets in real life, you can do that on the Betway website or app. Just go to the West Ham v Sheffield United game, and under the pre-built bet section, you'll scroll down and you can find the We Are West Ham podcast bets. They'll have my name, Tom's name and James' names on our appropriate bets we've just read out there. So if you like the sound of one of those, you can go and back those on the website or the app yourself. So that's that one, lads. Well done, Jonesy, for adding to the pot. Slow and steady it's been this season. Fingers crossed we can get some more against the Blades, and yeah, all three of us backing the Hammers to win. So fingers crossed on that one. But stay with us, because next up we've got the Travelling Blade Sheffield United fan 4-hour opposition view to let us know if those bets have got any chance of coming in, or if we're just talking out of our backside. Stay with us, because we've got that next. So some positive news there. James Jones winning 400 quidlies on his charity bet for the DT38 Foundation. That's some light amongst a very gloomy tunnel on the We Are West Ham podcast tonight after that Man United defeat. I'm still not over it. And yeah, James Jones is still grinning on the other end of the camera because he loves it when I get furious, which is just making me even more mad. But I'm delighted to say that we're looking forward now to the next game in the Premier League. I'm sure the 120 minutes in the legs of the West Ham players tonight will come as a great delight to the Travelling Blade, who joins us, Sheffield United fan, to look ahead to that game Monday night at the London Stadium, West Ham v Sheffield United. Mate, it's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us and hanging on late after extra time for us. Yeah, I bet you're absolutely buzzing with that extra few minutes in our legs tonight, aren't you?
Yeah, it's any advantage we can get, we definitely need at this time. We look very leggy, despite everyone's been running around us all season, yet we're the ones that look leggier than the rest of the league. So any chance that can tire you out a bit more, no doubt we'll go the length tomorrow with Bristol City and lose on penalties. So, I'll have egg on my face then. But any advantage we can get from anywhere is always welcome.
Well, absolutely. That is one small mercy from our point of view, I suppose, that you have got a game in the FA Cup still after us. And as you say, obviously not against Manchester United. Bristol City, probably a little bit of a kind of game for you guys. But yeah, it's one day closer, I suppose. We're grabbing onto silver linings here at the moment. But just looking forward to sort of the game on Monday night. You've got 11 points now, still bottom of the league. Burnley in 17th for a full 12 points above you with 23. Chelsea at the weekend, I thought you were really unlucky. You had some big chances. Burke, when it was still 0-0, you look a lot more dangerous in front of goal than you have for large parts of the season. For large games, you just didn't look like scoring for months.
No, I mean, a lot of this season, I mean, it's still not good now. But the fact that we're actually I think back to the Southampton game away when we lost 3-0 and we were nowhere near it, absolutely nowhere near it. I think we had like 20% possession that game. Every time we had the ball, we just lost it. And now the fact that we can actually get the ball, actually look up, run forward, actually string some passes together, actually have some shots, actually score a few goals now and again now, is in stark contrast to the rest of the season before Christmas, at least, where even though it's not good now, it was absolutely abysmal then. We just couldn't. Basic football was just miles beyond us, just finding a pass over 5 yards to a teammate in space. We couldn't do that then. Now we do that, sometimes we manage to do that, but I think the mentality has picked up. I think the cup form has helped us. The wins against Bristol City and Plymouth, Bristol Rovers and Plymouth, have helped massively.
Massive scalps.
I know. We've got to get wins from somewhere anyway, and it just gave us a bit of belief, and we going on to beat Man United as well, which was unbelievable. I still can't believe that actually happened. But I think the mentality has sort of kicked in, but just far too late. And I think the quality hasn't been there, and we didn't have massive, we didn't have great quality players last season, but everything was just ticked over us, and the mentality was there. It was a really positive, can-do, fearless attitude last season, whereas for most of this season, we look absolutely terrified to be anywhere near that ball. Not so bad now, but too little, too late.
Is there any threat over? Obviously, Chris Wilde is a club legend, and rightly so. Like, he's done so much for you guys. But is there a worry that there's a slight burnout and there is cycles like we've seen with Klopp's Liverpool side? It works in cycles football weirdly. And is there a worry that Wilder might have run his course at Sheffield United? Is there any fans called in for him? What's the opinion on him up at your ends right now?
I think at one point there were a few like Maverick fans going like, "Oh, Wilder needs to go," and I just think that like he's a victim, as are the players, a victim of their own success. Like I think he came in 2016. I think if we were still in the Championship now, and we were say top 5 in the Championship, top 6 in the Championship, I don't think any Sheffield fans would be really complaining about Wilder saying, "Oh, it's not good enough." I think the fact that we've just come up so quick, spent 2 seasons in the Championship, performed so well in the Premier League last year. I think some Sheffield fans thought, "Oh, it's going to carry on," and I think we were a victim of our own success, and I think we sort of, I don't know, sort of like outgrew ourselves, like got too good for our own good, and sort of. I think there is a burnout, like you mentioned, and I still think, even though there is a bit of burnout, I think it's still sort of, we need to be have a great sense of perspective of what players we've got, and actually it's just like now, the magic has worn off, and it's back down to reality with the players we have. But it's sort of like glass half full. Don't be annoyed of where we are. Still be amazed at what happened, and then just realize that this is where we should be. You know what I mean? This is what I expected last season to be like, really. Most of this season, this is what I thought last season. And then somehow last season, we had the perfect storm that went in our favour, and everything went well. We had very few injuries last season. And I said the mentality was there from the get-go. And I think we're a victim of his own success. And I think, like our owner, Prince Abdullah, said, I don't think anyone could do a better job this season. I don't think anyone really could have done a better job. You look at West Brom; we stuck with Wilder. They twisted with Bilic. It's not really worked out with them. I'd say they've got worse since Sam Allardyce has come in. They've conceded more goals. He's meant to shore up defences. We've done a little bit better. Which is
brilliant, by the way. All of that is brilliant.
Yeah, and it's just I think when we inevitably go down into the Championship, we may as well, I think, stick with Chris Wilder. We are where we are. The reason we're in this, bottom of the Premier League is because of him. Without him, we shouldn't be anywhere near the Premier League, let alone, at the bottom of it. And I just think, I can't remember what I was going to say then. But no, I think, going forward in the long term, I'd like to see Chris Wilder stay, well, forever, ideally. But I think try and mimic or echo what Burnley did with Sean Dyche, stuck with him, went down, came back up again, strong, and came back stronger. So hopefully we can do the same with Chris Wilder. And I think in a world of, you look at Chelsea, rash decisions, I think, chopping and changing, not just Chelsea, a lot of clubs now, there's no patience with managers. I think it's nice just to stick with someone, and we pay Chris for the incredible job that he's done. He's, like I said, he's almost made a rod for his own back with how brilliant he's been for us.
Well, that's what Sam Allardyce said. Sorry, James, I'll let you go. Just remember Sam Allardyce saying that. Wally Downs, the old West Ham assistant manager, was on the podcast early this season and said the same thing about Allardyce when, after he come up with us last time we were relegated, I think we came 10th the first year. And then the next season, it was pretty sort of 13th or 12th. And Wally Downs was saying it was a really good achievement by Sam. But because we came 10th that first season back, the next season, because it was not that or better, and we came 12th, all the fans were furious and thought, we're going backwards, blah, blah, blah. And it almost, exactly what you're saying, victim of his success. Sorry, James, I know you were going to go then.
That's cool. I'm interested to hear a little bit more about Ryan Brewster and what's happened to him at Sheffield United, because back in the summer when Sheffield United bought him, I was like, "God, that's a good signing." I wouldn't have minded if we'd have signed him, because we could have done with a striker, and he came with a lot of pedigree from Liverpool, and it hasn't worked out for him. And a lot of West Ham fans will know that we have a bit of a knack of ending players' goal droughts. We're always the team that a player will end the goal drought against or score his first goal for his club against. And I'm just wondering whether there's any danger of that happening this weekend or not with Brewster. Is he improving, or is he just way out of his depth?
I think there is a bit of that out of his depth. I think it was almost like a bad move for him. I think if he had moved to West, I'd move to you. You've had a pretty good season, a bit inconsistent at the start, but now you've hit some really good form and maybe even pushing for a top 4 spot. I think Europa League at least. So I think because you've played much better than we have this season, it'd have definitely. I think he's a bit of a luxury player. He needs a bit of time and space on the ball, and he's a bit of a look. Like I said, he's a luxury that we can't afford. We sort of need your gritty strikers, sort of like the strikers that have come good for us this season, sort of your Billy Sharp, sort of your arse and elbows out, holding the ball up, rugged defenders, rugged strikers, really gritty, strong strikers that can do
doing the ugly
work.
stuff.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that with Ryan Bruce, he's had a few sparks here and there, but I think it was just for a player like that to come into a relegation threatened side and try and turn on turn the spark on. I think it was too much to ask of him. Yeah, he was at Liverpool, but didn't get too much of a run out in the first team, really. I don't know how much he played for them, probably under 23s level. And I think it's just, it was sort of maybe right player, wrong time for us, really.
Yeah.
I think it'd been better for him to move to another club, such as yourselves, perhaps, that have had a better season, playing better football, whereas at times where...
Do you think the Premier League is too much for him, though? Like another season in the Championship, maybe?
I mean, he did really well for Swansea in the Championship. I'm not seeing how they actually played with him, but I just think that it's too. He gets bullied out of the game too much. He gets muscled out of the game too much. And when we had David Brooks in the Championship, which is also you get some. It's hard defenses to break down. You thought because he's about 5'7". He's a very he's lean. He's quite he's thin. There's nothing to him. You're thinking, he'll get bullied off the ball, but he uses like agility and skill to get out of it. He thought he used what he had. So he didn't have strength, but he used his agility to get out of situations and keep the ball despite not being strong. And I thought, Brewster might be the same, but he just seems to be bullied off the ball, or he'll never get to the ball first. If he does, he'll just get shouldered off it, and not really foul. It just seems to be snuffed out of every single game, and it's
lightweight.
He didn't seem to get any chance on the ball. Maybe if he got some of the ball, he would be able to turn a bit of the spark on and show us some flair and get a couple of goals, but he's not getting much time on the ball, and we need
allowed
players
that at the moment.
It's just not. I don't think it's the right situation for him, to be fair. I think he is.
Yeah.
Especially at least in our situation. I don't know if he's out of depth in the Prem as a whole, but he's not the striker you need when you're where we are. You know what I mean? You need
when you're fighting against relegation. Yeah. Well, I ask this every time we have a Sheffield United guest on. I know Tom wants to talk to you about how you think the game's going to play out and all that sort of thing. But just from my point of view, I ask it all the time. Because I still think of fans, this strange little rivalry popped up between our two clubs back in 2007, Carlos Tevez and all that carry on, despite the fact that I still one of the worst away days ever was going up to Bramall Lane when Michael Tong whacked in a free kick and you beat us 3-0 and Tevez was nowhere to be seen. But what's from your point of view? Like I say, I ask it all the time. And I get varied answers from Blades fans and journalists who cover the club and all that sort of thing. What's your take on the rivalry between our two clubs? Is it something that you still sort of feel really strongly about, or do you not care? Because I have, every time we play you now, I'm desperate to win because I absolutely loved that season and loved Tevez, and I sort of got well and truly caught up with it all. And every time we play you, I'm like, yeah, come on, I really, really want to win. But I get the sense sometimes that Blades fans just don't care as much as I do.
I mean, it's I think I'm probably like the wrong Blades fan to ask for this because I've always been like a Sheff U fan, but I only really started properly following Sheff U like when we dropped into League One. So right. I can't remember the season. Was it 2006, 2007 when Tevez happened?
Yeah.
So I wasn't even aware that it happened. Like the first time I was aware of it was when I got Tevez in match attacks, and I said, "Oh, Dad, look at that. He's a good one because he's like man of the match." And Dad said, "Oh, balls to him. He flipping cheated us." I was like, "Did he?" I was like, I knew I was like a Sheff U fan, but I didn't really follow football much. So I was like, that was the first time I found out when I got Tevez man of the match. So I've never had that burning hatred for West Ham myself. I know it's been there, and I'm sure if you speak to most Sheffield United fans a couple of years older than myself, in the like 30s and that, they will be like, you're to a lot of Sheffield U fans, West Ham are like one peg below Wednesday in terms of how much they hate them. I don't really see it that. When I'm at the game, I sort of get into it, but it's just because like the fans are going back and forth, so I really buy into it. And I remember last season when we came to your place, there was a few I think there's a few Tevez masks knocking about outside, and I was in the away end on the top tier, and when you went 1-0 up, this bloke had a chuffing Carlos Tevez flag. He's like waving it. I was going, like proper jeering. So everyone's flagging him off. And then when we equalised, we just sort of ran over to him, going like, "Yeah, shut the fuck up," flagging him off from that, because he was giving a big time Charlie when they scored with Tevez flag. So I buy into all that thing, and but like I've never had the burning hatred of the Tevez thing. Like when I looked back, it's like, oh, that was probably really. I'm glad I wasn't really following at the time, because it would have really, really pissed me off. And I'm sure if that happened now, the same thing happened. And now I would like carry the grudge forever, but because I sort of came to it after, I've never really had the thing. I just sort of see West Ham and go, "Oh yeah, that's the one that most Blade fans hate." But I sort of like it at the game just because there's like a bit of banter going between the fans. And I think even when we played you in the League Cup back in 2014, I believe, I think I've seen a video on YouTube. There's like West Ham fans going like, "There's only one Carlos Tevez," and that's when there was two. There was like a league between us, so. I know it meant to a lot of Sheffield fans when we beat you on penalties then. But I mean, for me, it doesn't mean too much. Night. I love it at the game, because I always just buy into the atmosphere and get carried away with it all. But I don't carry much grudge because I didn't like witness it live, if you know what I mean. So, but I think most Sheffield fans, especially ones older than me, definitely have quite a strong dislike for West Ham. Yeah.
Go on, Tom. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go on. I was just gonna say, you guys this season have struggled to score goals, and how do you feel like a point's not good enough anymore with the amount of games you got left? No. You sort of got to go out and win these games now. How do you feel like you're going to set up? Do you feel like you're going to come deep? Because we've often struggled against sides who tend to sit deep, but we're good defensively, so you need to show a bit of threat to have a chance at us. What do you think are the things we'll be wary of this weekend?
I mean, I think we will try and attack the game as best we can. I remember one thing I noticed, I don't know if it was just the angle I was sat, that your pitch seemed really big. And I remember last season, even when we were playing well, especially in the first half, it looked like we were like trying to walk through a treacle at times, running forward. I think it's just the angle I was sat at. And I just think, I think we're going to have to try and attack it. Chris Wilder, he does try and go and, sometimes it doesn't. At this point, there's a few times this season where it's not looked like it, but I think we do try and go and win every game, and we're not a team like Newcastle, not so much now, but like a month or so back, and they just sat back every game. I don't think we will do that because there's no point. You know what I mean? There's honestly no point in us trying to defend. We may as well go out, die fighting, if you know what I mean. So I think we'll set up as we always do, 3-5-2, 5-3-2. We're nowhere near as good as we were last season with getting forward because we've lost Jack O'Connell. The wing backs aren't as good. So in terms of going forward, and then defensively, everything's been rubbish this season, hence why we are where we are. Every single aspect of our play has been woeful. Whether it's the striking, the goalkeeper, passing, name an aspect of the play and it's been rubbish, honestly.
We know how you feel, mate.
It's just, everything's been absolutely shocking, hence why we are where we are. I think we're going to have to, I think we will try and attack it. How much success we'll have on that, I think if your midfield can string a few passes together, that's lights out for us, because our midfield really struggles to move out of midfield and try and create an attack. Like I said, you've got some great talent up front, some fast talent as well, which could cause us a whole world of pain. So I don't think there's any point in us trying to sit back.
Or attack, by the sounds of it.
We might be forced into it by you, but I don't think we're going to try and aim to do that, but we just might be forced into it by being rubbish. But yeah, I think we'll try and attack, give it the best we've got, see what happens. Hopefully we can pull off like another Old Trafford away.
Yeah, well, that sounds, like Tom said there, we do perform better against teams who come at us, but obviously the effects of tonight's game for West Ham and Wednesday nights for the Blades could have a big impact on the players. But look, just before we let you go, really appreciate you joining us. Just give us a quick, very brief score prediction for Monday night's game at the London Stadium.
2-1 West Ham.
2-1 West Ham.
That's optimistic. I was about to say 2-0, but I thought, now we'll probably sneak a goal from somewhere.
It is nice for us to speak to fans every now and then. I know it's not that enjoyable for you, but we've just got that glum, resigned feeling that they've got to watch their team again at the weekend. Well, look, that's Travelling Blade there. Thanks very much for joining us.
Cheers. Thanks for having me, guys.
Taking the time, especially this late at night after the West Ham Man United game. So sounds good. Jonesy, just before we move on to the next section, really quickly, your prediction for Monday?
3-1 West Ham.
3-1 to West Ham. Tom, what are you going?
2-0 West Ham.
2-0 West Ham. I think it's going to be a bit of a grim affair again. Two tired teams, not going to be much in it. West Ham win by the odd one. So I'm going to go 1-0 to the Hammers. But Travelling Blade, thanks very much for joining us. And stay with us because we've got Name That Game next. So the Travelling Blade there. I absolutely love doing the opposition view. Lads, it's great to talk to fans and journalists alike who, for a different perspective on their clubs, always intriguing to chat to Sheffield United fans as well, mainly because we find out that they don't hate us anywhere near as much as we hate them. In fact, they just think we're a little bit pathetic for looking into that rivalry as much as we do. But as ever, I am desperate for us to beat them, just in homage to Carlos Tevez. It was his birthday the other day, by the way. Very worth mentioning that right now. Happy birthday, Carlos, and I still love you as much today as I did back in 2000 and God, whenever that seems like a million years ago, 2000 and whenever that was, 7. That picture of remember that picture of Javier Mascherano, the iconic one, Mascherano and Tevez just looking confused, thinking, where the hell am I, next to Alan Pardew holding up their massive shirts. What an iconic photo that is. I had that in my room for absolutely ages, but nearly at 30 years of age I figured it's time to get rid of my football posters. But lads, look, enough of that faffing around. It's Name That Game, the stuff that really matters, the competition that means the most to all three of us. Jonesy, I mean, I don't want to keep rubbing it in because you know I'm not that sort of bloke to do that to you.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
But you are bottom of the league. It was 19 points you were sitting on for ages when me and Tom were deep in the doldrums of the early teens and the tens. But now I am in second place. Tom Edwards edging ahead of me last week. He's on 28 at the top of the leaderboard, Tom. I'm in second place on 27. And Jonesy, who is quizmaster this week, on 26. That gulf could get even bigger. He doesn't look fazed by it. He's not in the mood to be rattled by me this week, which I admire in him because I know I can be a wind-up at times, but he's rising above it. He's going to deliver his game in a professional manner, I can already tell. And I'm also assuming that it's going to be a rogue 0-0 game from about 1993. So me and Tom don't know anything about it and we get 0 points each. Am I right?
You are so far off. It's incredible. But the more I think about it, just wondering whether Tom might be a bit too young to remember this game.
Oh, don't worry.
I hope so.
I should know it.
But we'll soon find out. Are you guys ready?
If it's 2015 or before, he's too young.
What he texted me earlier, I've already got the answers.
Right, here we go then. Here we go. So, obscure facts is in this game, saw a very unlikely brace from a West Ham icon.
Oh, right. I'm going to have a guess. And I'm going to say 3-0.
That's incorrect.
3-2.
That is also incorrect, boys.
Right, what's the scoreline then, Jonesy? And we'll have a guess at the opposition goal scorer.
Scoreline was 2-2. My favourite, Desmond.
Ooh,
Yeah.
So we need an opposition goal scorer.
Can I go?
Go on, Tom. Yeah, have a go, mate.
Robin van Persie.
That is correct.
Oh, no.
1-0 to Tom. He's got it. Need the West Ham goal scorer.
Oh, no.
No, Tom's got this.
He obviously has, and I'm a bit snookered here. Right, I'm going to go Jonathan Spector.
That is definitely not correct.
Ah, no.
It was James Collins.
It was James Collins. Unlikely brace from Ginge in a 2-2 draw. Robin van Persie. Where was it?
Well, I'm going to go. Upton Park.
That's correct. Give you that.
Thank God. Thank God for that.
Yeah, give you that.
United, Manchester United.
That is correct.
Blimey.
So the season, please.
I
For
still
consolation.
I still genuinely haven't got a clue. I'm going to go for 2014-15.
No, incorrect. Incorrect. Tom?
I think it's 2012-2013.
That is correct, mate. That is bang on. What was that? Is that 5-1?
That was a bit of a drubbing. I
Yeah,
didn't keep.
5-1, yeah.
I
Is that
wasn't
5-1?
keeping.
Yeah.
I don't remember a
So that
jot
fixture-
about that
that
game.
fixture-
That's a good one,
is-
Josie, that.
FA Cup third round, 5th of January 2013. Ginge, we were 1-0 down. Tom cleverly scored for United. Then Ginge scores a brace either side of half time. Robin van Persie, 90th minute equaliser to take the replay to Old Trafford. FA Cup third round, 2013.
Wasn't it?
I thought,
Jonesy, was it Joe Cole's first game back or something as well?
yeah, he was in the starting 11.
Yeah.
I think that might have been his first game back. Yeah.
Well, bravo, Tom. Even now,
There we
as you're
go.
saying that, I don't remember any of it still. I don't.
Two
I
big
don't-
towering Ginge, classic Ginge headers.
I
Yeah.
remember being there gutted, and it was a Giggs ball
Yeah.
over the top to Van Persie, and everyone was just loving Giggs in the media.
Oh, I do remember.
Yeah, on the
Van
right. the
Persie,
fucking
absolute
goal.
peach at the far
Yeah.
post, wasn't it? It was
Yeah.
a nice goal, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, the build up to it was typical United build up play.
yeah.
Oh, well, fair play, Tom. I mean, what a streak he's having the last few weeks. Jonesy, can you update us on the scores?
So that was 5-1. So that puts Tom on 33.
Was it? Hang on, was it 5-1 or 4-1? Wasn't it? None of us got the scoreline.
Oh yeah, 4-1.
4-1. Okay, so 32.
Cool.
Sorry, yeah.
Blimey,
All right,
look at
yeah.
this.
32. Will on a 28. So that keeps me still within distance, but Tom's leading with 32. Will on 28 and me on 26.
Absolutely.
So
Well, Tom,
I'm actually pleased with that.
yeah, that's not bad. That keeps you in touch and distance, doesn't it? But fair play, Tom. Nice game, Jonesy. Very on point given the game that we, obviously the Man United in the FA Cup. We just play them all the time, don't we? Always get drawn against Man United in the FA Cup. But yeah, fair play, Tom. Excellent streak you're on at the moment. Miles out at the top of the leaderboard there. Well, look, stay with us because Tom Edwards might have won that and on an excellent run of form in Name That Game. But one team who are not on a good run of form is the West Ham women's team. And we'll look into their defeat at Chelsea in the semi-final of the League Cup last week, and that 1-1 draw, which feels like a loss away to Bristol City in the WSL at the weekend. We'll have all of that with Sandra Brobby, sports journalist and WSL expert from The Sun, next. So that was Name That Game here on the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. I'm delighted to say for our last segment, as we do every single week on the podcast, joining us or returning guest is Sandra Brobby, WSL expert and sports journalist from The Sun newspaper to chat all things West Ham women. Sandra, great to have you back with us again. We appreciate you giving us your time as always. And it's not been a great week for West Ham, to be honest. Thrashed 6-0 at Chelsea in the League Cup semi-final last Thursday. Probably an expected result, to be fair. Obviously being on the end of a 6-0 is never good, but more worryingly is the 1-1 draw at Bristol City on Sunday in the WSL, which leaves them 11th, just 2 points off the bottom. And I mean, we'll start with that game, I think, because it's most recent. We were chatting a lot of the time this season, and I've been guilty of it most weeks, Sandra, saying, oh, you know, Bristol City are bottom and they look doomed. So luckily there's only one relegation spot in the WSL, so the girls should be safe. Matt Beard, former West Ham manager, of course, has gone in there, seems to have transformed their fortunes almost overnight. Even the first game they lost, they put in a good performance. You know, West Ham getting just a point there at the weekend. That was a massive must-win game for the girls, and all of a sudden relegation looks like a very real threat.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that's going in West Ham's favour, I guess, is the game in hand. But I mean, Bristol are going under some kind of resurgence under Matt Beard. I mean, he was relishing that West Ham game. I mean, I spoke to him just after Bristol beat Leicester to make it to the League Cup finals, and he was just saying that, you know, I said to him, well, you know, what are your thoughts about facing West Ham? He says, well, look, I'm the Bristol boss now, and you know, my thoughts were just on Bristol. But I think they were feeling confident that they were going to win it. They were disappointed that they didn't win at the weekend. So, and obviously the run of games that West Ham have got coming up. I mean, you've got Brighton tomorrow, and you've got a Brighton who are probably going to be absolutely charged because they're, you know, the only team to beat Chelsea in 2 years. And then after that, after the international break, you've got Chelsea again, who are, you know, probably going to be furious that they've, you know, lost that unbeaten run, plus a Birmingham City side that have strengthened as well with some good young talent in Ruby Mace from Arsenal, Emily Murphy from Chelsea, and then Man United. But I think with West Ham, the challenge at the moment is the goal scoring in the league. I mean, you know, obviously prior to being hammered by Chelsea in that semis and the League Cup, they
unintended, I hope.
Sorry.
Yeah. that sort of thing's always welcome on this podcast, Sandra. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but I mean, prior to being defeated by Chelsea in that the League Cup semis, they had a decent performance against Durham, who've been doing well in the Championship. I know it's the league below, but you know, Durham are unbeaten in the Championship. But it's just, I think goals is an issue for them at the moment. And I think Rachel Daly, definitely, you know, her creativity not being there is a bit of a loss. And then obviously they've you know, lost Alicia Lehrman on loan. Should I say lost, but she's gone on loan. And then, you know, I think that there's something in terms of more impetus up front in terms of the attack.
Where do you think, before I let the lads jump in, Sandra, where do you think that's going to come from, though? Because like I say, when clubs change managers, as we've seen at Bristol that we've already mentioned, Matt Beard's gone in there, and whatever it is, just that new manager energy seems to be seeping its way into their team and their squad already. The same hasn't really happened, it seems, with Ollie Harder at West Ham. And like you say, you mentioned the players leaving there. You feel like the squad is in a bit of almost a weaker position at this stage of proceedings in early February than perhaps it was around Christmas time, which is quite worrying because they weren't in that good shape then. Do you think that, I know you mentioned the game in hand that West Ham have got over Bristol underneath us, but can you see that attacking impetus or the points needed? Can you see them coming from anywhere, or is it's not over the top, I think, to start talking about relegation now? Would you agree?
I think they're definitely in a relegation battle. I mean, if they ideally they need to win against Brighton tomorrow just to give themselves a little bit of a safety net, because Bristol are going to have a toughish game against Tottenham. You know, they've you know, apart from obviously the loss against Chelsea, Tottenham are doing decently under Rianne Skinner. I mean, hopefully they can get a point, or they can win against Brighton tomorrow to give themselves that bit of an impetus. And in terms of, you know, just new manager lift and, you know, kind of like a boost, they've signed an Icelandic international forward called Dani Brynjarsdóttir she was from a club called Selfoss, but she also played in the NWSL for Portland Thorns, won the NWSL championship with them. I'd like to see her, and just to see whether she might be able to do something up top for them. I haven't seen anything of her yet, brought in on transfer deadline day. She wasn't in the squad. I don't know I haven't checked to see what the situation is, but maybe, you know, if we see a run out from her, she might add something to it. But they need something. They need a bit of a bounce or a lift, definitely, and definitely more goals in the league, I think, just to really help them in terms of this scrap at the bottom, because it's getting quite tight around there.
Yeah. Sandra, obviously with a slightly unexpected relegation battle now on our hands, and obviously the change of managers, a lot of pressure already on Ollie Harder. there's been a fair amount of investment from the club into the women's team. Obviously, Jack Sullivan's been given, the reins for the women's club. Can West Ham women afford to be relegated? Because okay, they've not had the same sort of investment as some of the bigger clubs, the likes of City and Chelsea and Arsenal, but it's still been a decent level of investment into the women's side, and relegation from a lot of people that have seen that investment might seem like a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to hope that that's not going to be the case, and they've got enough that they can stay up. So there's a few games in March that that possibly challenging, but you hope that they've got enough there. I mean, it would be a shame considering, like you say, how much support and investment the club have put into the women's team, in terms of how much of a profile they've been given, how much support Jack Sullivan's given them, in terms of pushing the profile of the team. So, I mean, you'd hope that they don't go down. I mean, you've seen what's happened with obviously with Liverpool going down, and how challenging and competitive it is in the Championship at the moment. Obviously, people are thinking they'd instantly come back up again, but then who knew that Leicester would come from nowhere, and Durham, and obviously Sheffield United as well, and it's quite competitive down in that division. So fingers crossed for West Ham that they can survive this and bounce back in the league and turn their form around.
Sandra, obviously we've mentioned it a little bit, but the 6-0 loss against Chelsea in that semi-final of the League Cup is a big thing to overcome, especially so early on in Ollie Harder's reign. Is there a worry that, considering the squad's lost a bit of their experience they had, like you mentioned, Lehman, Daly, is there a worry that this squad might struggle and this form could continue on? Because a result like that can really hammer in a season. How do you think they need to get over that going forward?
Well, just like you say, more goal scoring. I mean, there were times in the second half of that game where they were trying. I know these brought in like more of a pressing game and getting them to press, as much as possible. We'll see. I think we'll see what happens with Brighton. If they can do something, even if it's a draw against Brighton, it's better than a loss. That hopefully they might get some momentum from that. The international break might be a welcome break, possibly just to kind of like regroup, I think, and just to have some time off and just away from a slightly difficult run this month, certainly, in terms of some of the games. But I mean, I hope if they lose tomorrow, that's a bit problematic.
Grim is the word. Yeah.
You just want at least a point or to like, or pick up the win so they can just get the things going again this year in particular, and to give Harder his first win and to just take that pressure, I guess, a little bit off him.
Yeah, I think that's what, obviously, like you mentioned, the win he got against Durham, which is good. It's that league win that he really wants to get under his belt, and I think everyone connected with the club would have highlighted Sunday as the best opportunity to do that. Just obviously, understandably, Sandra, it's been a bit of a dour sort of conversation so far, given the form of West Ham in the last week. It's almost inevitable, unfortunately. I think it's definitely worth noting on that League Cup result. Obviously 6-0 is not a good way to finish it, but getting to the League Cup semi-final is still a big achievement. So at the beginning of the season, if you'd put that down as where the girls would have ended up getting down to the last four, that's definitely to be applauded. So obviously a shame the way it finished. But on that note of trying to extract some positivity where we can, looking forward, where would you, if there's some West Ham women's fans listening to this at the moment going, it's not been a good couple of months, I'm not massively enthused about Ollie Harder, we've lost Rachel Daly, etc., all the things we've touched on. If you were asked to inject a bit of hope into those fans about the prospects for the coming weeks and months, what would you say to them?
Well, just to look out for Dani Brynjarsdottir in her debut, to see what she can bring to the team, to see whether she can add some impetus into their attack. I mean, like you say, reaching the semis was a good achievement, a decent performance against Durham. If they can pick up a point or all the points tomorrow, then that would make all the difference. It would give them something kind of like, a nice win before the international break, something to build on going forward for the rest of the season. I mean, I guess that the pluses are it's quite tight down there, and, they do have that game in hand, and and they've been doing reasonably well in the league for some time now. So I'm sure they've got enough in there that they should be able to stay up. The quality in the squad, and a lot of experience, and and a great captain in Gilly Flaherty. So hopefully they'll have enough in there to stay up.
Absolutely. Well, 12 games, 8 points for the girls so far. Bristol City bottom, 13 games, 6 points. Just the one win for them so far this season. And Aston Villa in 10th, 2 points above West Ham on 10 points. Birmingham in 9th on 11. So like you say, if they manage to get a win against Brighton, who are in 8th, that puts them 1 point behind Brighton, and all of a sudden they're back in the mix up with all those other teams. It is just getting that first one for Ollie Harder. So fingers crossed for the girls. As Sandra mentioned there, that's Brighton away in the WSL on Wednesday night, 7 o'clock kickoff before Chelsea at home in the next game in the league. Well, Sandra, we really appreciate you joining us as ever. We've all got our fingers crossed for the girls and for Ollie Harder. That's just somewhere, that's all it needs at the moment. It's just for one of those results to drop and give them all a little bit of a boost, and then it doesn't look so grim. But very much a make or break game that at Brighton tomorrow night. Sandra, appreciate you joining us. That is nearly it for the show tonight, but stay with us because we'll have some final thoughts from the lads after what's been a roller coaster show next. So that was Sandra Brobby there from the Sun, WSL expert, giving her view on what's been a bit of a grim week for the girls. Lads, really briefly wrapping this one up. It's a bit of a late night now after West Ham went to extra time. So just quickly, I'll run through the Fantasy Premier League points quickly. We've got a new leader on the We Are West Ham podcast league. Congratulations to Tom Connolly's Romford Rejects. His huge 73 points this week saw him soar to the top. He's got 1,504 overall, and finally pushed Rudy Eagling's Moyes Mavericks off of the top of that leaderboard. He's been there for weeks. He drops a second on 1,488. I got 61 in the week to keep me top of the three of us, and our mini leaderboard on 1,379. James got 76, biggest score of the week, puts him on 1,298, and Tom got 57, which was the lowest score between the three of us for the week, to put him on 1,309. So Jones, you still bottom, me still top, Tom in the middle. Do follow us on Twitter at @WeAre_West Ham if you don't already, to get involved in some polls and additional content, etc. Follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is the link to that channel is in the podcast description below. Right, James, Tom, very briefly, Jonesy, some final thoughts on what's been a bit of a strange week for West Ham, some ups and downs, and a roller coaster podcast, which I've thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, started well at Villa, terrible at Fulham, and just gutting at Old Trafford, but can't fault the boys. They played really well. Just hope we bounce back on Monday night against Sheffield United.
Absolutely. Tom, brief thoughts. You got 20 seconds.
Yeah, losing a cup game's always gutting because there is no tomorrow in it, but we're still top 6 in the league. We still got sniff, and we still got some good players out there with winnable games coming up. So fingers crossed we'll get right back at it, because the quality is definitely in that side. So come on, Az.
Absolutely. So West Ham crashed out of the FA Cup away at Manchester United. No real shame in that. Bit of a shame about the circumstances in which it came about. An excellent win at Villa. Bit drab at Fulham. It feels like this could be the turning point of the season, but let's hope that Moyes can stop any potential slide down the league, and somehow we can be the first Premier League team ever to qualify for Europe with 0 recognised strikers. That is it for this week. Thank you to everyone at home who listens, and all around the world, UK, London, Essex, whatever it is, or Australia, wherever you are. Thank you for listening. Keep the faith, everyone. Up the hammers, and we'll see you next week.